Hey guys, Dark Skeleton here, and today we're taking a look at some new Blackrock Mountain Adventure cards. Today we have the Dragonkin Sorcerer and the Dragon Egg. So the Dragonkin Sorcerer is a 3/5 for 4 mana, pretty standard stats, and the benefit of this card is that whenever you target this minion with a spell, it gets +1/+1. Now this card does remind me a lot of the Burly Rockjaw Trog, which was released in Goblins vs. Gnomes. It was an okay card, but it didn't really see all that much playing constructed. The downside to that card was that your opponent had to play a card in order for the Burly Rockjaw Trog to get buffed. But with this card, you yourself target the minion with spells, which might actually end up being better because any smart opponent would never just let you have a Burly Rockjaw Trog on the field that gets buffed up and not remove it. What comes to mind immediately is that you would be able to use buff cards along with this card and get even extra stat value out of it. For instance, you could do a Mark of the Wild to effectively give a minion +3/+3 for 2 mana. Mark of Nature, which could be +5 attack, +1 health, or +1 attack, +5 health. Not to mention throwing in Taunt. Along with the fact that it's a dragon, I imagine that this will be a pretty niche card, but a decent one at that. I think this card will see some play, but it definitely won't be played in every deck, because in order for this card to be worth anything, you have to have those spell cards that you want to target your own minions with. So in general, I think that Dragonkin Sorcerer is going to be a pretty decent card, but as I've noticed with all of the Blackrock Mountain Adventure cards so far, they are pretty niche. Good in their niche, but not cards that you would play in every deck, which I do like a lot. So the Dragonkin Sorcerer's niche is going to be classes that have a lot of buff cards, or certain buff cards that are actually worth playing. This could include Druids using the Mark of the Wild for +3/+3 buffing this guy up to a 6/8 for 6 mana and 2 cards, which is pretty decent. And the nice thing about that would be that it's right below the big game Hunter range. A Paladin could also buff this up with a Blessing of Kings, putting it at, that would be a 8/10. Yes, an 8/10. Of course, that is in big game Hunter range, but it could still be pretty good. Blessing of Kings, you know, it does make pretty strong minions, and when it's a +5/+5 instead of a +4/+4, that makes a really strong dragon. But of course, the weakness of playing buff cards like that is if you buff them up but never actually get to do anything with them, and then your opponent finds an answer like a big game Hunter to that card, then they get to effectively remove 2 of your creatures for 1 card or 1 battle cry effect. So in general, you would want to play the Dragonkin Sorcerer first, and then if it survives to the following turn, then buff it up, run it into another guy, and get a trade so that even if your opponent does have a response, you've already gotten at least a little bit of value out of the card. Next up we have the Dragon Egg, and you might be starting to notice a theme among the egg type cards that they basically do nothing on their own, but when they hatch they become a pretty big deal, and you can get a lot of nice stat value out of them. Instead of on a Death Rattle where it will summon a 4/4 Nerubian like the Nerubian Egg, the Dragon Egg will summon a 2/1 Whelp whenever this creature takes damage. Now in theory that does mean you can have one Dragon Egg spawn multiple Whelps. And it's only a 1 mana creature too, so if you can find a way to get those procs, then you might be able to get some pretty nice value out of it. That said, a 2/1 Whelp in itself is not really that strong of a creature. It's about the equivalent of playing a Leper Gnome without its effect, which is also a 1 mana creature. So if you're going to play Dragon Egg, you either need to use its 0/2 body to do something, possibly by giving it an attack buff with an Abusive Sergeant, or you need to buff this creature up with a Mark of the Wild or a Mark of Nature so that it becomes a creature that can actually attack, and when it does battle with your enemies, then you get extra whelps on top of that. In other words, this Dragon Egg needs an activator to go along with the creature itself. It's not a card you play by itself, it's a card you play in combination with other cards. And a deck that can do that really well, of course, is going to be the Zoo deck. With the Zoo deck, you can combo with Power Overwhelming, Abusive Sergeant, Direwolf Alpha, and if you have a Knife Juggler on the field, not only do you get a knife from summoning the Dragon Egg, but every time you proc its effect, it's going to summon another dragon, which also throws out a knife. Another possibility that comes to mind is to play the Dragon Egg in an Enrage-style Friendly Fire Warrior deck, where you're using the Dragon Egg with cards like Whirlwind, which is going to Friendly Fire your own Dragon Egg, thus proccing its effect, Cards like Rampage, where when you have a 0/1 Dragon Egg, you can buff it up with +3/+3 for 2 mana, making it a 3/4 with maximum 5 health. Frothing Berserker, where whenever the Dragon Egg takes damage, your Berserker gets even stronger. But probably not a card you'd want to use with Bouncing Blade, since it's likely to be the card that dies, and secondly, also I believe that the whelps it summons can still be targeted even if they're summoned during the Bouncing Blade effect. The exception to this rule is if you were going to play Commanding Shout along with a Bouncing Blade. Your Dragon Egg wouldn't be able to proc multiple whelps, but your new whelps wouldn't die. You would only get one whelp because I believe Bouncing Blade stops hitting your own minions once they are reduced to 1 HP if they are immune to further damage. Thus, playing all those cards in conjunction wouldn't be a game-breaking combo, it would just not be to your detriment since your whelps would survive at least. One more idea you can use with the card in the same way people were using Nerubian Egg is to play a Taunt Giver like a Defender of Argus next to the Dragon Egg, making it possibly have attack, but at least giving it Taunt in the case of a Sun Fury Protector, forcing your opponent to either silence a 1-mana creature, or to take it out themselves, thus creating your whelp. Now I can only imagine that the whelps that spawn are going to be counted as dragons, and there's still a couple dozen more cards left in the Blackrock Mountain Adventure set. Of course, some of those cards are going to have Dragon Synergy, and I don't know, no one knows how 2/1 whelps are going to react to Dragon Synergy. Could there be a card that gives +1/+1 to all dragons, or sacrifice a dragon in order to play this bigger dragon? It's hard to say exactly how good the card will be without seeing the rest of the cards, but at this point I think it'll be a pretty good option for zoo decks at the very least. So I've been Dark Skeleton. That was a look at the Dragonkin Sorcerer and the Dragon Egg from the Blackrock Mountain Adventure set. If you want to see me cover more of the cards as they come out, go ahead and subscribe. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments, and I will see you all next time.